In today's video, I'm going to show you how to do some freeform embroidery on printed fabric. Hi, I'm Kim Jamison Hurst of Chatterbox Quilts, and I've been working on a little project here, and I wanted to share this with you because it is a lot of fun, and you can try out different embroidery stitches, and you don't even have to think about the design because it's already printed on the fabric for you, sort of. Okay, this is not an embroidery project per se. This is fabric yardage that I bought with the express purpose of embellishing it with hand embroidery stitches. So let's talk about the fabric first. I purchased a couple of different kinds of fabric. One is from Art Gallery Fabric, which is this one here, and the one you just saw there, which looks like this, without the cut out of it, of course. And this is from Free Spirit. But both of these are perfect for this type of project because you have these distinct shapes. So you can choose what you want to embroider, how much you want to embroider. You can choose the stitches, you can choose the colors. You know, it's lots of fun, very creative, very freeing. So for example, in this particular piece of fabric, you know, I might want to capture all of this around the bear because there's all these flowers that I could do some fun embroidery in, right? And bring a lot of color into this basically two-color fabric. You could also go with, you know, the fox or wolf. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be exactly. One or the other. There's deer as well, rabbits, lots of cute animals in here. I just love this fabric. And lots of opportunities for expression with hand embroidery. And of course, this is the one I'm actually working on. Again, there are other animals in here. You've got the deer, which I'm working on, but it faces, you've got one facing one direction, one facing another direction. You've also got owls, little chipmunk, rabbits, pretty butterfly. There's even fox here as well, as you can see. So you can have lots of fun embroidering these. And what I like about this particular fabric is, you know, there's lots of color in it as opposed to the other one. So you may want to stick with the colors that they've got here, but also there's these little flowers, right? So you can actually embroider the flowers, make them 3D, and that gives a lot of life and dimension to this fabric. So let's take a look at the one that I am working on. So this is what I'm working on here. So I decided to do the little deer. Now, caveat here, make sure you leave yourself more fabric when you cut it out than I did, okay? So I'm, as you can see, very thin on the fabric in this area, okay? Because I didn't want to cut out too much of the fabric. But, you know, don't be quite that stingy, okay? So I've got it in the embroidery hoop, and then I had to decide what threads I was going to use, what color threads I was going to use, and also what stitches I was going to use. So for the deer, I decided to go with, I'm actually using a variegated thread here, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And I also went with a stem stitch to go around. So I finished going around the whole body. You can probably see it on the back a little better. But I haven't defined the legs yet. So I'm partway through the legs, so I'm going to keep going on that. And then I also did some stitching on the interior with some of the flowers. And I just did some French knots here. So these are purple, half of it's purple, half of it's kind of a pinky color. And so I just did some purple on there. I may go back and do the pink, or I may just leave it like that. I also did some straight stitches down here. And then I used a bit of a sparkle thread here to add just a few little sparkles in the background. Not sure if I like those or not. Not sure that they show up enough. You may not be able to see them very well. You can see them on the back a little bit better. But, you know, if I don't like them, they're easy enough to snip and take out. So let's take a look at the stitches I did and the threads I used to work on this little deer design. So let's talk about the threads that I used in the project, because I'm using different threads and different weights of threads as well, and that's part of the fun, right? So for the background area, those little dots in the background, little stars in the background, I'm using this thread, which is Wonderfil, called Dazzle, and I'm not sure what weight it is, but it's fairly thick. I'd say about a 5 weight pearl cotton, something like that. Then I also am using this Wonderfil Eleganza. This is an 8 weight, and that's what I was using for the flowers on the deer when I was doing those French knots. And then I was using this nice variegated. This is from Valdani, and this is a 12 weight. So 3 different weights of thread. So it just depends on the weight, the density of the stitches, what weight thread you want to use. So this is the 12 weight there with the Valdani, and there's the dark Dazzle in the background there. So you can have lots of fun just choosing different colors, but you can also have fun choosing different weights, right? So now I want to show you those different stitches I was using. So I want to start with that stem stitch. So I'm going to get a thread here. I'm using an 8-weight Finca de Perla here right now. Yes, I use lots of different manufacturers, as you can tell. So, oh, I was going to start my stitch, but hey, I want to make sure my stitch stays. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I have a knot on the back of the fabric. You don't always have to use a knot, but I typically do, unless it's going to show through the fabric, I should say. So to do that, I'm using a quilter's knot. So I place the needle in front of the thread, wrap it a couple times around, and I'm holding it with my index finger. I'm holding that thread against the needle, if we can see that. Then I'm going to switch and hold the thread against the needle with my thumb and index finger on my left hand as I push the needle up with my right, holding, 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 holding. It's like holding your breath. And we're going to pull that knot down. So you can see I've got a knot there on that thread. Now I can trim off this edge, end I should say, now if I want to, or I could do it afterwards, or I could just leave it. But anyway, now we know my thread's not going to pull all the way through. All right. So let's start with that stem stitch. So you're going to come up, pull all the way up, and you're going to keep that thread. You want to make sure that the thread is away from you, okay? And then you're going to go back down again. Now I'm going to exaggerate this. You're going to go down a little bit of a slant. How much of a slant is up to you, whether you want to have just a little bit, whether you want to have a lot. We're going to go about here, and then I'm going to come back up again about halfway between where I started and where I'm coming out at that point, or going back in, I should say, at that point. Sometimes it gets confusing what I'm actually doing. Okay, so I'm going to still make sure that thread's up above, and I'm going to pull it down. So that's one stem stitch, okay? Then I'm going to keep doing this on whatever slant I want. And I'm going to come back up again about halfway through, making sure that thread's up. That's the trickiest part of it, making sure the thread's up. The second tricky part is making sure it doesn't get caught on your fabric. Okay, we're going to pull that through again. Now, I can make this as extreme as I want. It depends on what direction I'm going. But I'm just going to take this down. I want to start a separate one here, just to show you here. I'm just going to pull my thread down. But if you're going into some really small, tight little areas where you're making changes, you know, you're going around a really tight little circle or something like that, you want to make your stitches a little shorter because it's easier to do that. It's pretty difficult to get this, trying to get that on a severe curve. So I will come up here and take a smaller stitch. And if I'm doing this, sometimes I will find it's difficult, to get my needle back where I want it doing that. So I will sometimes just go straight down, making sure my thread is out of the way, straight down into the fabric, hold that loop, and then I will just come straight up wherever I think that the middle is and do it like that. So on some shorter stitches, and you can do them shorter than this too, right? That's what I may do. So I find it's just a little easier to get around a curve. By taking a bit of a smaller stitch. And then I can go down and pop back up wherever I think is working. And when I'm coming back up to, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm coming up pretty close to that previous thread. Okay, I want to be on the underside of it, but I want to come up pretty close to it because I don't want any gaps, showing in here. If I didn't come up very close to it, you'd have a big gap in there, and that's not the kind of stitch you want. So that's your stem stitch, and that's what I did around the body of the deer. I'll just bring it back again so you can see. So that's the stitch I'm using all around here to outline the deer. Then I did some French knots. Now I like French knots. I think they're a lot of fun. They take a little bit of practice, but they are a lot of fun. So you're going to come up and you're going to hold your thread off to the side a little bit here, usually with your thumb and index finger. Sometimes I forget what I do. It just becomes natural after a while, right? Then I'm going to take my needle underneath my thread and go around a few times. Now, how many times I go around depends on how big I want that French knot to be. And that sometimes depends on the density of the thread as well. Okay, because thicker thread's going to make a bigger knot, right? And then I'm going right back down. I'm keeping that tension on that thread with my left hand. And I'm going right back down very close to where I came out, keeping that tension on the thread. If I don't keep that tension, the knot just kind of dissolves. And then I'm going to pull right down like that. Okay, gives us a nice little French knot. So again, you're going to come up. We're going to keep that thread off out of the way with my thumb and index finger. I'm going to take my needle underneath the thread and wind it a few times around. I'm taking it down trying to keep it kind of close. I can always pull it and pull the needle back to keep it close to where I came out. Go back in again, still keeping that tension on the needle, on the thread I should say. Needle and the thread kind of. And go back down and just pull it through. Okay? Now, the needle I'm using right now, just to tell you, is a chenille needle, all right? It's got the big eye and everything. It's a relatively short needle. You can use a milliner's needle, which has the shaft and the eye are the same width, and it makes it a little bit easier to pull that thread through when you're making this type of a knot or any type of a knotted stitch. If you find you're having trouble, that you're really having to pull really hard to get that knot down, you might want to try a milliner's needle or a straw needle instead. Okay, so there's the French knots. Again, they were on the flowers here that I did, all right? And then I did this, I said it was like a straight stitch. It's more like a back stitch. Some of it was like just a straight stitch and some was a back stitch to go along the kind of stems of those flowers. So if you're doing a straight stitch, fairly simple, you just come up from the back and you know, go down again wherever you want it to be. So straight stitch is usually not joined to anything else. You just come up and you make your stitch as long as you want it to be and just pull it down again. So that's good for doing little accents. It's good for doing, say, along a stem if you want. Like maybe you've got a short stem like I had in that particular fabric and you just needed one stitch to go to create the stem. The other one I did was actually a back stitch. So with a back stitch, you're going backwards, right? So you're going to come up. I keep my thread out of the way here. And then I'm going to go back down again. And a lot of times I do this type of a thing. I go straight down and then I will come back up again with the needle. So I'm coming up forward and then going back. And I'm going to go back down the same place I came up before. Okay? So you're going right back down in there. Or pretty close. Okay. Do what I do, not what I do. What I do, not what I do. What I show you, not what I say. Or do what I say and not what I show. Okay, do what I say, not what I show. Okay, and then I come back down again, trying to get right back in that same spot. Keep my needle as straight up and down as I can, and you just keep moving along. Now you can also go off on angles if you want. Usually I'm trying to get the same length of stitch, but here I'm making a longer one, as you can see, just to show you. You can go off, you know, along as you're going, right? You don't have to always be in a straight line. The back stitch makes a really good outline stitch as well. I could have done this around the outside of the deer if I wanted to, especially if I was using a thicker thread, right? So you just keep coming up, forward, going back in the same stitch again, you know, go forward, then go back, right? And so it gives a nice even look around the edges of different designs. So those are the stitches that I used in the project so far. Actually, I will take this and just stick it in my pin cushion for now. Let's just bring back the deer again so we can take a closer look at it. And it's hard to see. Like I say, you may be able to see more on the back, some of it. Here I need to do some trimming, but you can see that stem stitch going around really easily. And I like the fact that I can go inside. When it's printed like that, it gives me lots of opportunities. I can do as much or as little as I want to do, right? So if I'm coming in here, like I did want to come in and outline the leg, I will probably go and do this leg as well. I could come down here, just probably that far, because the leg will already have been outlined. On the chest, I could come in and use different colors, you know, a darker thread to come in here if I wanted to. I could also outline the eye. I don't know that I'll do that. I might put just a pop, a white, a French knot in for his eye in the center. I don't know. I'll see that. The nice thing about working with hand embroidery that I really like is if I don't like something, if I'm going along and I don't like it, I will stop and I can snip my stitches or just pull them gently back, especially if you're working on cotton, you can do that, and, you know, try something else, whether it's I don't like the color, whether I don't like the stitch I'm doing, whether I've, you know, made a mistake in the stitch, you know, too long a stitch and it just doesn't look right, whatever, I can do that. Something like the nose too, I could do some outlining here if I just wanted to outline it a bit, but I may not. I may just choose the deer. Again, if I want to add more, I can. If I've added some and I don't like it because I think it doesn't look right, I'll just take it out. So I think it's really fun to work with these printed fabrics because the design's already there for you and it's up to you how much you want to put into it. Great way to practice your embroidery threads. Great way to make a little design like this for a gift for someone. You could add some additional embellishments in the background. I do have part of the butterfly there I could do, or you've even got these spaces here that you could, add some thread here and even add some additional embroidery around just kind of here and there. And, it'd be really, really cool, I think, when you're done. I think it'd make a really nice gift or a decoration for your quilt studio. So I hope you will try out this. Start looking for some printed fabric. This is great on fabrics, let's say like kids fabrics, or those types of fabrics where you think they're really, really cute, but you don't know what you're ever going to do with them. Why don't you try this? Thanks so much for watching today. If you want to know more about hand embroidery stitches, don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video. That'll give you all the information you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.